Hi, and welcome to Getting Biblical, the show where I drink too much and talk about my favorite Bible stories. I am Matt Smith, your host, and thank you for joining us today. So here we are on the cusp of one of the most popular stories in the Bible, one of the most famous, the giving of the Ten Commandments. I feel like the Ten Commandments is one of those stories, one of those things that just about everybody is familiar with, at least at some level. Like in top 10 lists in general are super popular for content creators, BuzzFeed and YouTube, whatever. But God was the first one to do it. God was the first one to give Moses his BuzzFeed article of his top 10 things that he wanted the Israelites to do, and everyone from then on. So it's a lot to go over, a lot to get into, and it's pretty much like the final chapter of the story of Moses. Like, he's got some more stuff that he does, but it's one of the final big stories in Moses's arc. He helped build the tabernacle and kind of did some other stuff in motion and everything, but this is his last big story. The Ten Commandments is just one of the cornerstones of the Jewish faith and the Christian faith, and even has some similarities that can be seen in Islam, even in the Quran. Even though the Quran doesn't have a Moses on the mountain story per se, there is a part found in the Quran where there's two verses next to each other, and it lists out these 10 kind of thing, or not. It's not 10. It's kind of, there's a couple extra ones thrown in there, but just this concise list of highlights of things that people should or shouldn't do. And there's some extras thrown in there. It's not exactly 10, but the ones that are in there match up pretty closely, really closely to this list, and in the similar order as this list that we get from Moses and the Ten Commandments. So that's a whole other conversation or thing to study and figure out how it all connects and everything. But it's the maybe not the story itself, but the moral here, that these 10 commandments, these things, are seen throughout so much of different, these different religions and everything. So it's a big deal. It's neat stuff. It's a neat story. And there's a lot more to it than people actually usually realize. There's a lot more going on than just him going up and God being like, here, what up? Here's some stone tablets. There's a lot of layers. So can't wait to get into it. Can't wait to talk about it. Exciting to be back, by the way. I forgot to mention, I've had a wild few weeks with just so much going on in my personal life or whatever. So super glad to be back here recording, focus on the show and doing stuff. So I know I released an episode on Sunday, and it doesn't seem like I've been gone very long to you guys, I guess, but I've had so much going on that I feel like I'm able to breathe again. So I'm happy to be here, happy to have some fun, happy to be drinking a little bit tonight. Speaking of which, I guess now is the time in the show where we talk about what I'm drinking. So I was trying to get really cute today and get something that tied into the story. I still have some Moses vodka lying around and was going to think about using that, but I was at the grocery store this afternoon, and just as I was about to leave, I already had my cart full of groceries and whatever. Just as I was about to leave, basically monsoon broke out above the store right around me. And there I was with about 30 other customers, all with bagged groceries, sitting inside the store waiting to go out because it was dreadful outside. It was raining so hard and it was so bad, and none of us wanted to go out and get ourselves or groceries, drenched. So as I'm there and I'm waiting there for a few minutes, and then I look over and I realize that between the awnings or whatever, the overhangs of the building, if I could survive just like a 10-foot stretch of open air, like monsoon rain, water, whatever coming down, if I could get through that, there's a liquor store right over there that I could peruse while I wait for things to lighten up. So I man up and run through the rain and get over there, and I'm hanging out at the liquor store, and not even with a full intent to buy anything per se, but hanging out, walking around, looking at stuff, looking for something that might spark my interest for today's episode. I'm like, okay, it's the 10 Commandments. Is there anything here that has the number 10 on it? Or and I found like a scotch that was aged 10 years I thought about buying, and some other stuff, trying to look at everything. And then my eyes caught this bottle that I was like, oh, I've never seen that before. What is this? And I picked it up, and it's a whiskey called Legacy. And while it may not be on the nose with today's story, the Ten Commandments per se exactly. We really are talking about the legacy of God and the Hebrew people throughout the Bible and everything, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and generational stuff and everything. So I thought legacy was close enough. And on further inspection of the bottle, I realized that, because looking at it, so the bottle, it's got kind of a subdued color scheme for it. The word legacy is in like a off-white coloring, and there's a bird, maybe like a hawk. Not really great at bird law. Not really great at what types of birds there are, but kind of like a hawk or something. And it's a bird. We'll leave it at that. It's a bird on a barbed wire. And it's kind of a neat thing. And just looking at the design, and I've been through a lot of whiskey, and I kind of assumed that it was a bourbon. It looked like a bourbon to me, which I love. So that caught my interest. But then upon further looking at the bottle, I realized that it wasn't a bourbon. It was, per their label, a small batch Canadian whiskey. Now, Canadian whiskeys, I have to admit, unfortunately, in my mind, are kind of, sorry to say, the lowest ranking member of the whiskey tree. We've got the bourbon and Scotch and Japanese whiskey and Irish, of course, the offshoots like rye and everything. Canadian often gets, unfortunately, sort of treated like the redheaded stepsister of the bunch. All right? I don't, unfortunately, give it as much respect as I would kind of like. Like obviously Crown Royal is probably the most famous of the Canadian whiskeys and the most popular. And I'll never actively turn down Crown if offered, if I'm at someone's house or whatever. And I do have a tendency to try their new flavors when they come out. Their vanilla one that came out, their apple one. Wasn't a big fan of that one. Then they did some other stuff. They just did a peach, which has been sold out every time I've tried to go buy it. So that one I'm really curious about. But anyway, those are actually, I think, more liqueurs than actually whiskeys. But that's a whole other conversation for a different day. But anyway, so that's Crown. One of my first hangovers in life was from Crown. So it both has a special place in my heart and bad place in my memories, but I won't ever turn it down. I like Crown. It's fine. I just don't actively go to it, if you get what I'm saying. So there's Crown up there, and then down way low is this poison. I can't remember if I've talked about it on the show or not, called Canadian Mist. Now, Canadian Mist, it represents to me the worst hangover I have ever had in my whole life. It was about 4 or 5 years ago, I think. Had it for the first time. It was cheap, whatever. I was at the party. Started drinking it. It went down smooth, but ended up in a 3-day hangover. It was trouble to even move. It messed me up so bad. And I don't know if there were other factors, and maybe I'm not giving it its fair due, but I will unfortunately never drink it again. It's bad. So I have this, those are my two baselines of what Canadian whiskey is. One that's pretty okay, pretty mediocre, pretty fine, and then one that will kill me if I drink it again. So, and I want to change that. I want to experiment more with Canadian whiskeys and appreciate them for what they are and understand the nuances and stuff like that, whatever they might be. And so seeing this, and it's a small batch, quote unquote, blended Canadian whiskey, intrigued me. So I was like, decision made. I'm going to buy it. We're doing it. It's a $18 bottle, right? Not a big investment. I figured, why not? So I get home with my bottle, excited to open it up, and I start doing some research on my new purchase, and come to find out that the company, Legacy Whiskey, actually a subsidiary of Sazerac. Now, Sazerac, they own Buffalo Trace, the whole Buffalo Trace family brand of products, but because of the Buffalo Trace division of Sazerac, this bottle, actually, this Legacy, per their website, is actually even bottled at Buffalo Trace. So that explains to me why I got this vibe of bourbon by looking at it and everything, because it's really not saying where the contents actually came from. I'm not disregarding that, but it's clearly from a subsidiary company that loves bourbon, so I think it gives off that vibe. Now, all that to say, I still want to experiment more with Canadian whiskeys and try some others in the future that might be more closer to what a Canadian whiskey should be. Not saying that this isn't. I just don't know the difference just yet, if that makes sense. So excited. I'm going to keep going down the Canadian road and keep trying that. But back to this in particular, this bottle that we're focusing on right this second, spoiler alert, I'm a big fan. Really like it. I was actually very pleasantly surprised, especially for like a sub $20 bottle. It is nice. It is really great. It has got one of the lowest alcohol kicks that I felt from a whiskey. It's 80 proof, so not so bad. It's right up there with like Jim Beam or whatever. So not like it doesn't surprise me that the alcohol doesn't like kick you in the face, right? It's not excessive in that regard, but it's nice. It's really great for sipping. It's got a lot of the toffee notes and the sweetness on the palate, but then it has like a little bit of kick at the end, but none of it's too overpowering. It's pretty mild. It's not gonna be like a Lagavulin or something where it's just complexity and just like, oh man, all the flavors. It's the sweetness and a little bit of spicy, but it is so easy to drink. There is like no kick in your face from it. I would pour this for friends that aren't into whiskey to give them a shot and see, if this could be up their alley. Maybe give them, the baby steps into it. It also actually reminds me a lot of an Irish whiskey called Redbreast 12. And if you don't know about Redbreast 12, it is an amazing Irish whiskey. I would absolutely advocate that to anybody that was interested. Absolutely is great. It's not, maybe I'll have it on a different show or whatever and actually talk about it for real, but Redbreast 12 is amazing, but it comes in, I can't remember if it's like $60 or $80 here locally for me. These are all my prices. They might be different for you wherever you're at, but I'm just giving you a baseline. It comes in about $60 or $80 for me here, and if someone was like not sure if they wanted to drop that kind of money on a bottle that they've never tasted before, I would definitely recommend grab a Legacy, taste this. If you like this, if you're into this at $20, maybe it'd be worth it to spend a little bit extra and try Redbreast, because I feel like it's in the same vein. It's very similar. The Redbreast is definitely more complex and there's a lot more to it, and I think that you're gonna, if you actually like study it on your taste buds, you'll enjoy it a lot more. And this one's a little more simpler. I don't want to say watered down, but that's the only word I can think of right now. It's just kind of tamer a little bit, but it's fantastic. I don't feel the need to put ice in it. It's very sippable, just neat. It's pretty great. It's pretty great. I could be way off on the Redbreast thing. If I retry Redbreast, I might be like, I was way off. This doesn't taste anything like it, but that's where my memory's like trying to trigger for that. So anyway, huge fan. Very, very big surprise for me. I didn't know what to expect from this, and we lucked out. It was a miracle. It's a 10 Commandment miracle. So that's what we're drinking, and I'm so excited for this bottle. I'm actually going. And as always, we're not sponsored for anyone. This is just me talking about things that I like. So, but Legacy whiskey, big fan. I'm going to pour myself another. That's really good. Okay, so where were we? Moses. Okay, so let's catch up with Moses. We've talked a lot about him. I think he's been in like 6 episodes now. I lost track. He's probably going to be the most talked about person in the whole Bible until maybe I get to Jesus, and even that I'm not even sure. So Moses is a big player in everything. King David might actually have some stuff too. I don't know. Now that I think about it, he might be really popular. But Moses did a ton, and you're probably sick of hearing him. We're almost done, but this is a big one. So he's out in the desert. Moses is out in the desert, and he's got like 1 million people with him that he's in charge of, and he's keeping himself busy by playing Judge Judy for them every day. Like, he's just like, people are coming up and asking for him for advice, and they're like all these inquiries and everything. Because if you think about it, at this point, like, they don't have a Bible, they don't have a Wikipedia, they don't have anything to go look up and figure out what the rules are to being a good Israelite, right? Good Jewish person. They don't have the Torah written or anything. So all they've got is Moses sitting there telling them what's good and what's bad. So they're going to him all day, every day, asking for his advice on stuff. Like, what does God think about this? What does God feel about that? Like, is it a sin not to tip people when I call in a to-go order to Applebee's? Like, yes, it absolutely is. Those people make regular $3 an hour, just like servers do. They survive on tips. You're a douche if you don't tip them. It's in the Bible. Just know that. So that's my PSA on behalf of Moses for the day. But that's the type of stuff that Moses was dealing with all the time, like getting asked crazy questions. So one day he's like fielding these questions, and his father-in-law sees him, and he's like, "You should do work a lot. You keep long hours, boy. I think you need to work smarter, not harder. How about hire some managers and some assistant managers and assistant to the regional manager, some shift leads, all that type of thing, and put people in place to help the other people with their questions." And Moses is like, "That's a great idea. Why didn't I think about that?" So he sets up this whole hierarchy tree of managers and whatever and stuff. Of like, so like if you got like a baseline question, you could go to like the local guy who's the local leader in charge of like 10 people. And if he doesn't know, then you can take it up the ladder to the next guy who's in charge of like 100 people. And if that guy doesn't know, he can take it up to the next guy up to 1,000 people, or what, like there's just like people that are in charge of certain different size groups. And then if everyone's baffled, it goes all the way up to Moses, and then he'll like answer the question because he's the one that knows God the best at this point. So that all happens, and he sets all that up, and then God talks to Moses, and he's like, "Hey, I like what you're doing. Good stuff. Let's make it official. I want to give you some rules and things, and I want to talk to you guys about some stuff to really set the foundation for where we go from here as a people. So tell everyone that I've got some things to say, and in 3 days I'm gonna come down to earth for a little pep rally. And in 3 days I'm gonna come down right over there to that mountain, Mount Sinai." And I don't anyone getting too close to me. So if you could like put up a fence, some barbed wire or something around the base of the mountain, nothing super strong. Maybe just like the lines at the movie theater like that you use, right? The tape ribbon things that you clip in. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like it doesn't have to be like super sturdy. Like don't build a wall or nothing, but just like a perimeter around the mountain, because like I want to make a speech from the top of the mountain, but I don't want anyone to get too close to me. Like I'm feeling very introverted right now, and I don't want to get suffocated, and I might kill them if they get too close. So tell them to keep their distance. So Moses tells everyone that God's coming and for a visit in a few days, and then literally tells everyone to high importance, tells everyone to wash their clothes. For real, verse 14 says, "Moses went down from the mountain to the people, sanctified the people, and they washed their clothes." Like immediately, like, "Hey guys, we got company. You should all wash your clothes right now. We've been in the desert for a while now. Let's be presentable." And which makes sense. Like it's one of the things in the Bible that absolutely like checks out. You should definitely wash your clothes before God comes to visit. So anyway, he also instructed them not to have sex until God leaves. Like we're not doing, kind of like going home, I guess, to like your in-laws or to your parents' house, like as an adult, like, you're going like for Christmas or something, you're headed out, like, like we're gonna go see grandmom, like you better wash your clothes, and no having sex under grandmom's roof is kind of what's happening for God's visit. And 3 days later, in the morning or whatever, there's thunder and there's lightning and a thick cloud all around the mountain, and smoke rises from the top of the mountain, and there was an earthquake, and the ground shook and everything, and they heard this loud, everyone there heard this loud sound, this trumpet of God as he came and descended on the mountain. And he gets down, he reaches the top of the mountain, I guess, or whatever, and he calls to Moses and says, "Moses, come on up here." And Moses, he goes up and he chills alone with God up there. And like just for like a quick like manager's meeting, a debrief before God's big speech. I think this is how I envision it. Like God, like Moses gets up there, he's like, "We ready? Like we're a go in 20, God." And God's like, "Great. Just a couple things, like kind of like diva God mode. Like, did you give me the M&Ms I requested? I only like the blue ones. Is my water bottle? Is at the podium? Everything's ready? Did you set up the barrier like I asked? I don't want people coming too close to the podium. If they do, they'll die." And Moses is like, "Nope, God, we've adhered to all of your requests. We're ready. It's showtime." So they get ready, and everyone's like looking up to the mountain, and it's lightning and thundering. Everything I said. This big plume of smoke is rising from the top of the mountain. It's fire and stuff on the top. Everything's shaking, and everyone is standing in awe of the spectacle. And then God taps the microphone. He's like, "Is this thing on? Testing, 1, 2, 3. Thank you all for coming out tonight. Looks like we have a really great crowd. So what's the deal with airplane food?" starting the whole thing off. Just kidding, of course, that's not in Scripture. God says, "Hey, I'm God, the God that brought you out of Egypt, the God that brought you out of slavery. I'm pretty great. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being my people." And then he just goes right into what we would later call the 10 Commandments, just right off the bat. And they are in this, I almost said in no particular order, but no, in this particular order, at the top of our list on God's top 10 commandments, he listed, number 1, you shall have no other gods before me, right? God doesn't want to compete with any other pagan gods that you might have, just the one, just him. So commandment 1, you should have no other gods before me. 2, you shall not make for yourselves any idols to serve, because I am your God. So again, right? None of that pagan idol stuff, right? Just you and God. 3, you shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain. Pretty straightforward, right? Don't blaspheme, I guess, that type of thing. Number 4, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shall you labor and do all your work. But on the 7th day is a rest dedicated to the Lord your God, and just as in the 6 days the earth was made, right? So keep the Sabbath day holy is commandment number 4. Number 5, honor your father and your mother. Pretty straightforward, right? Don't be a douchey kid. 6, you shall not murder. Also pretty straightforward, right? Just a baseline. Don't kill people. 7, you shall not commit adultery. All right, don't sleep with married people. Pretty baseline for a lot of religious stuff there. Number 8, you shall not steal. Also pretty baseline. We're not rocking the boat too much here. Number 9, you shall not give false testimony against your neighbor. Right? Don't lie in court either. Don't say that somebody did something when they didn't. Also pretty great rule just in general. And then lastly, number 10, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, house, or anything that belongs to your neighbor, right? It's like the intent of stealing without the actual act of stealing. Like don't even wish it was yours. Like, right? If they have a nice car, go buy a car that's like it, but you shouldn't. It only leads to bad things if you covet the exact thing they have, especially with wives and stuff. Like that's a bad road. So don't do that. Don't do that shit. And that's the 10 Commandments. That was the list of the 10 Commandments. And then God goes into some further details on things like 3 chapters of just other notable instructions to Moses. He's like, here's the 10 Commandments. Those are the big ones. Also, here's some supplemental readings to go along with it. And he talks about how you should treat slaves. He defines murder versus accidental homicide. Lots of nitty-gritty stuff about making idols and worshiping them. All this stuff. The slave stuff is interesting. If you have a slave and you beat him and he dies, you're in trouble. But if you have a slave and you beat him and then he gets up after a few days, then it's no big deal, right? So there's that. And on the other side of stuff, if you kidnap someone and human traffic them as a slave, then you're supposed to be put to death. So it's kind of all over the place, to be honest, right? Like if you have a slave already, you can beat him as long as he gets up after a few days. But don't sell slaves at all. Like, don't you dare do that. There's actually this deeper level of where you could actually sell yourself into slavery if you found yourself kind of like modern day jobs, I guess, a little bit. I don't know. If you're I need some money, I will work for you, for money or whatever. I think it was maybe slightly different than how we think of as slaves, except you were allowed to beat them. Luckily, no one at my job beats me. There would be other issues there. But Anyway, blah blah blah. We could dissect all of this later, but so he gives all this stuff and just these other there's the main 10 commandments, and then all these little things like addendums, right? These amendments to the Constitution almost of these other side things. So God gives all this, and there's like 1 million people there in the wilderness listening to what he's saying and then soaking it all up and everything, and they all verbally agree to the terms and conditions. Basically, like, God is like, I want to be your God. I want you to be my people. I just want you to do these few things. Like, don't murder people, keep Sabbath holy, and don't lie in court, right? You know, and you know, all these other things. And everyone uses like, yes, we agree. You'll be our God. We'll be your people. Sounds like a sweet deal to us. We're in. And so they all do like this pledge of allegiance, right? And promise to follow God's commandments and be his people. Verbal agreement, covenant. And then they make a sacrifice to really, you know, solidify it, because it's not really a deal unless a goat dies, you know, if you know what I'm saying. So you gotta do that too. So God gives all these rules to all the people, and there's this verbal covenant that happens. And then he tells Moses to bring his brother Aaron and his sons, Nadab and Abihu, Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the leaders of the Israelites up onto the mountain for a super dope chill sesh. So they all go up on the mountain, and God doesn't kill them or anything, even though they cross past the barbed wire or whatever up on the mountain. And he doesn't kill them. And Moses and Aaron and Nadab and Abihu and the 70 elders all get to see God. I don't know if he was like in smoke form at this point or whatever, but they get to see like the closest any of them has really gotten to God at this point, as far as I can remember. So I think they have a feast, they eat, they have a great time, good stuff. So then God tells Moses that he wants him to come up even higher on the mountain. He's like, leave the other guys there, come up, I want to have a private conversation with you. So Moses starts heading up the mountain, and he's like, hey, Aaron, I'm going to go talk with God for a bit. If anybody needs anything, if the children of Israel need anything, you're in charge. I think you have this figured out by now, right? You just take care of things. I'll be back shortly. Be back as soon as I can. And so Moses goes up on the top of the mountain, and God's there. It says it's a blazing furnace that he walks into. That's why that big plume of smoke was there. And he walks in, and he's just hanging out with God. And one thing turns to another, and he's not picking up his cell phone. Everything is going straight to voicemail. And it ends up that he's up there for 40 days. No call, no show to work, whatever. He was just gone for 40 days. The last they saw was him walk into this blazing fire on top of the mountain. But it's really cool because up there, God has given Moses all these blueprints, all these plans to build things. Like, he's like, build me a tabernacle, right? I want you, which is like a sanctuary, like a church or whatever, like for people to worship at. We're out here in the desert. We need this. And he also tells Moses he wants them to make a wooden box. He says, make it 4 feet long, 2 feet wide, 2 feet tall, melt down gold and cover the box with gold, both the inside and the outside and on the 4 corners. I want you to attach these big gold rings and then make some big poles that you're going to slide through the rings so people can carry it without actually touching the box. Just carry hold the poles you can touch, but don't touch my gold box. And then like God tells them to make a seat in the middle of the top of the box, like decorate it with that, and then make 2 angels out of gold and put them on the top of the box with their wings covering the seat. Also, all out of gold. Everything's gold, 100% gold. And inside the box, Moses is supposed to put the stone tablets that God is about to give him, the 10 Commandment tablets, inside this box. And it's a whole big thing. Of course, this is the plans for the Ark of the Covenant, one of the most mysterious and talked about relics in the Bible. I don't know if it's not really talked about too much in pop culture these days, but there's a whole Indiana Jones movie surrounding this, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, talking about this, the Ark of the Covenant. This is that Ark. So, it's gonna keep coming up in stories, by the way, that we get into as well here on Getting Biblical. So it's a big thing. God gives all the instructions for that, and God keeps going, and he keeps giving Moses like interior decorating demands for their soon to be built church or whatever. God's really into gold, by the way, but he tells them to make a table out of gold. He wants all the silverware to be made out of gold. He wants lamps golden. And then he gets tired of gold, and he starts talking about making curtains. And he's very specific. A whole chapter about the curtains. Like, let me tell you. And like how to set it all up. He wants like 10 massive curtains and then 2 sets of 5. So you take those 10 and make them 2 sets of 5 and then sew them together because he wants a mega curtain, like the thickest curtain you can ever imagine. And it just keeps going on about decorations and all this stuff. And there's like symbolism that we can talk about and do and get into, and maybe we will one day. Maybe it's fun. It's way too much, and we're not doing it right now, so just go with it. God is really into gold and big curtains. So that's the moral of today's story. We'll get into the rest later. He also I forgot about this. He talks about he wants lamps lit at his in his tabernacle 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The lamps that burn should burn forever, never go out. It just always be there, which is nice. That's cool, right? And then he wants Moses to make holy clothes for Aaron, Aaron's going to be like his high priest, right? Just all these directions. That's why it took 40 days. It was 40 days of here's what I want, here's what I need, here's what I want you to make, do all these things, blah, 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 blah. Like, it's literally like 10 chapters of God giving Moses these details. And I am fast forwarding through all of it because I want to get to the next part. So after all this is going on, God gives Moses the 2 stone tablets, like that God like created or brought out of the wall or whatever himself. And then God, with his own finger, writes the 10 commandments on these stone tablets, right? It's not like Moses was the secretary writing them down. No, God was like, number 1, you should have no other gods before me, and wrote it with his own finger. So pretty cool, pretty neat. So Moses has his instructions. He's got the stone tablets autographed by God. He's got all the stuff. He's getting ready like to go back and do everything he says. And at the last minute, right as God is like mid-sentence on like the last instructions, whatever, he happens to take a glance at the surveillance camera, or the surveillance monitor that's looking out over the Israelite people, and his jaw drops because I guess he's been ignoring it or whatever. And I imagine that he calmly yet gravely tells Moses, just like I hear an exasperate, right? Like, hey, Moses, you know all those instructions I just gave you over this past 40 days? And Moses is like, yeah. God says, forget it. You know what? Forget it all. New plan, Moses. How about this? I'm going to destroy the children of Israel. Dun, 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 dun. Right? Like what? Like, where did this come from? And here's where the scene of the movie changes. Like, it says, meanwhile, or rather, probably not meanwhile, it's like 72 hours prior, right? It stops you on that cliffhanger, and then 72 hours before, or something like that. Don't know exactly how long, but while Moses is up, he's been up on this mountain for so long, and everyone down below is getting worried, and they don't know what's happening. And so I feel like day 1, like Moses goes up there, he's like, Aaron, you're in charge, I'll be right back. And cool, day 1, no worries. And like 24 hours later, like, okay, took longer than I thought, but no big deal. He's up there with God. I'm sure they have a lot to talk about. And then like day 5, they're like, well, any day now, I'm sure. 1 week. We'll give it 1 week. We'll see how that goes. And then fast forward, day 13. Like, he said he was coming back, right? Like, did I misunderstand what he was saying? Did he say, screw off, I'm out of here? I thought he said he was coming back. Where is this guy? And then like day 24, maybe he's not coming back. Maybe he made God mad and God killed him, and I don't know. Like, where is he? What's going on? And then day 37 comes, and it's like, who are we waiting for again? Why are we here? It's been a long time. I've forgotten everything. It's over a month now. And everyone starts getting like anxious, right? And they go to Aaron, like all this million people, whatever, I don't know. Like, they go to Aaron, they're like, hey, so we're pretty sure that Moses guy is dead. Like, it's been a month. He didn't go up there with any food. He just walked into the fire. Like, it's been 37 days now or whatever. Can you make up a new plan? Like, How about, can we get some idols to worship or something around here? Like we're getting pretty antsy about worshiping something. We can't. It's been existence is paid. Whatever. Like I can't. We've gone too long without. I'm crack fiending. They're all like scratching their necks or whatever. Like we got 37 days there. 37. We haven't done a single animal sacrifice in a month, man. Like Daddy needs his medicine here. Like that type of thing. And Aaron, come on, man. Aaron is like, yeah, you're right. I have no idea what happened to my brother. I guess you're right. He is dead. And then Aaron decides to start the world's first ever Kickstarter campaign. He crowdfunded, literally, for everyone to donate gold to him and his cause or whatever in his next course of action. And everyone does. They tear off their gold rings and their gold necklaces and earrings, I think it says, and everything. And they donate all this gold to him. And he takes all the gold and he melts it down. And then he forms it and engraves it and creates from this gold a golden calf. A golden calf, like a baby cow, right? And he presents the golden calf to people and says, "This is your God who delivered you out of Egypt." And everyone was super into it and applauded and started worshiping the golden calf idol. Like, what the fuck, man? Like, what? Clearly, we live in a different society. I don't come from a culture where we're super into bowing down before golden animals very much, but I clearly don't get it. God just freed you from slavery, just gave you water to drink and Chick-fil-A falling out of the sky every day to feed your asses. He just parted the Red Sea. And then had it swallow up your slave owners, the Pharaoh and everything. He's literally still on top of the mountain as the embodiment of fire and smoke and lightning and thunder. And just recently explicitly told you, don't the second or third, I lost count, commandment, don't make any idols. I don't like that shit. They just immediately told them that. And they 37 days later, turn right around and be like, we really think we want an idol. Can you please make us one? And they get one, and they're ecstatic. And I don't get it. I don't understand it. But anyways, so they have this golden calf, this idol, and they offer sacrifices to it and everything. And they're planning a big feast, for the next day. And so now we're caught up to the two stories, right? So God sees the idols down there. He sees everybody like getting ready to sacrifice to it and worship this idol and have a big feast, and God loses it. God's like, 40 days. Are you kidding me? They can't even be good for 40 days. I just told them I hate that idol crap. What's the first thing they do? Screw it. Screw it all. Screw all them. I don't need them. Close your eyes, Moses. I don't want you to see this. I'm going to destroy every last one of them, and we're just going to start over with you, Moses. A new nation, the children of Moses. We'll get it right this time. You in? You in? I'm about ready to do it. I'm going to press this red button, and everyone's gone. And Moses comes in, and he's like, okay, I get it. You're frustrated. I totally understand. I'm right there with you. Rightfully so. You have every right to be upset and frustrated. It was not a very cool thing they did. Also, listen, real quick, just listen. You just put in a lot of work getting them out of Egypt, right? You did a lot of plagues, all that effort you did, turning water into blood and everything, and the toads and stuff. So, hear me out. If you kill them now, that's not a great look, right? It's not a good thing. Also, the Egyptians that are still left and the other surrounding countries here, they're all going to kind of laugh at us and say things like, oh, wow, look at that God of the Israelites who freed his people just to murder them in the desert. We don't want that. It's not a good look. Let's figure out a different plan. So God's like, you're right. Okay, go down there. Let's assess the situation, and I'll try to refrain from the genocide. Right? We'll try to go for option B. Plan B. So Moses runs out of the fiery center of the mountaintop, and he's heading back down the mountain, back down to the Israelites. He's got the stone tablets written by God's own fingers, autographed by God, in his hand. Adrenaline is pumping. He just talked God out of killing every last one of them. And I'm sure he's running down the mountain thinking, what the hell, guys? You see the the Nile River turned to blood and nobody bats an eye. I go on a small vacation and everyone loses their minds, right? Like he's getting closer to the bottom of the mountain, and his servant Joshua is with him, by the way, and he says, like, hey, do you hear that noise? I think they're at war. And Moses says, I think he looks in the camera and he like squints his eyes. He says, that's not war. That's a party. And lo and behold, there was a rager going on at the foot of the mountain. He sees people singing and dancing and eating the remnants of the sacrifice they had made to the golden calf, and Moses loses it. It blows his mind. He takes the stone tablets autographed by God himself and smashes them onto the ground in a fit of rage. And without saying a word, and I just imagine it's just a ball of righteous indignation, and he like flips over some tables, probably, whatever, and he takes the golden calf, and right in front of everyone, he like makes like a big fire or something, and he melts the calf down, stops the party, turns off the boombox, whatever, melts the golden calf down, and then takes the melted calf or whatever, and he grinds it up even further. Like, so first it's like just like this melted like bullion, gold bullion, whatever type thing, and then he takes that and he dusts it up so he gets like these golden flakes, and he pours those golden flakes into their water supply so that every last motherfucker there has to drink it. Like, he is so mad right now. Like, weird flex, but okay. Like, you're gonna drink the remnants of the golden calf. And Moses like goes to Aaron and he's like, well, like are you gonna explain what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? And Aaron goes like, oh, Moses, I'm so glad you're back. These people, man, these people are wicked, dog. I'm telling you, they like begged me to make them an idol to worship. They threatened me, actually. I didn't have a choice. They threatened me, and so I had some gold earrings laying around, and I tossed them into the fire to try to like make them happy, and dang it, wouldn't you know it, this golden calf just popped out of the fire. It was a miracle. And so we just thought it was a sign from God, and we had to party and sacrifice to it and stuff, and which is all utter bullshit. It literally says that he crafted it and engraved it and made it. So whatever, you're full of shit, Aaron. But the calf didn't magically pop out of no fire. Anyway, so Moses like sees that the people are just running wild, and it's just craziness, all the debauchery everywhere. And to the point that the NIV version says that even the surrounding like countries or nations that could like kind of see the Israelites, the Israelites were a laughing stock to these other countries. They're like, what are these wild people doing over here? It's what it literally says. So Moses calls out over like his PA system and anyone that's listening, and he says, if anyone still wants to follow God the right way, line up over here in this area. And apparently all the Levites, the lineage of the tribe of Levi, right, the one brother Levi, they all line up over in this section of people that want to serve God for real. And Moses gives all of them swords. And I don't know how he decided it exactly, but gives them marching orders to go out and kill the worst of the wicked people in the camp. It doesn't really clarify the thought process. It just gives swords to the Levites and say, go out and kill your fellow people in the community. And they end up killing 3,000 people for their wickedness, which is weird. I mean, kind of weird, but there's like 1 million people here, right? There's like 600,000 dudes alone, I believe is what the number is. So 3,000 is actually a very small number. Like, this isn't like a Thanos snap where we get 50% of them gone. Like, 3,000 is a small number in comparison. It's a lot of bodies stacked on top of each other, but in comparison to the whole, it is. But here's kind of the neat part, and maybe this is like how it ties in, but in the immediately next section, Moses goes back to God, and he's like, listen, we killed 3,000 people, like the worst of them or whatever, but he's like, listen, I need you to forgive the rest of the people. We killed the worst ones. Forgive the rest. If you're not willing to forgive the rest of the people, if you still want to kill them all, please blot my name out of your book, and I don't want my name to be ever associated with everything that we did and coming out of Egypt or whatever. Like, I want to be a no name, no person. Like, let my name die with me. I don't want to be recorded in history as having any association with this if you choose to kill them all, right? He's like, that was Moses' stance. And God's like, listen. Like, I'm going to forgive them, right? It was a stupid thing they did, but you killed the worst of them. I'm not going to blot your name out. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to kill the rest of them. What I am going to do, though, is I'm going to blot out the names of the 3,000 that you killed, and no one is ever going to know who or what they were about or anything like that. And I think that's kind of why it's interesting and why it skips over like how they knew or who they killed exactly, maybe, because God literally just says like screw those guys. I'm going to blot them out. And they did. And now it's like a mystery. Like, oh, who are these 3,000 they killed? So, I don't know. I think it's neat. You know, not even a mention of what these cucks did, like, to deserve it. But, so anyway, so God's like, also, by the way, Moses, don't think that I forgot that you broke my tablets that I made. You need to replace those. and Moses, was like, shit, forgot about that. But oh well. So they strike up a deal, whatever. And Moses gets an opportunity to see God himself. It's like one of the last things. Like before, when like he and Aaron and Nadab and Abihu, whatever, they were hanging out with God, God was just in like the smoke form. But Moses is like, I want to see you for real, for real. I'm putting in a lot of effort. I'm putting my neck on the line for your people. I want to see you. I want to be the guy that's seen you. So God's like, listen, man, you can't see me. You can't see my face, because you'll die, right? That's not a thing that can happen. But I will let you hide in a cave, and I'll let you look out through like a little sliver, and when I walk past the cave, and then I tell you when, you can come out and see like the back of my head, and that's the most that any mortal person can see. It's like, and Moses is like, deal, great, I'll look at the back of your head. That's close, good enough for me. It's all I want. So Moses has to carve 2 new stone tablets for the commandments or whatever, and he goes back up to the top of the mountain, and God comes down and he rewrites the commandments on the new stones, just so he autographs them again. And then just like they said, Moses is in a little cave or whatever, and he peeks out after God walked by, and he sees God's back of his head or whatever, and it was like one of the only times in the Bible that this has happened, right? It's a big deal. It's a huge deal. And Moses comes down off the mountain with the new tablets, and as he's walking down, he is beaming. And I mean that literally. It says that because he saw God, he soaked in God's radiance, and his skin was literally glowing so much that people were afraid to get near him, and he had to like wear a mask or like a face covering whenever he went out in public because he was glowing so much and looked like he had radiation or something. Like it looked nuts. So it lasted for a long time. That was a very monumental thing. But now he had his 10 commandments, he had his glowing face, he had the blueprints for making the tabernacle, the blueprints for making the Ark of the Covenant, and he had their marching orders of what to do next. And of course, as I said already, they had the 10 commandments and everything, and they're really finally set to be the children of Israel and follow God's plan and create that legacy. Tied it all in. So anyway, that's the story of Moses and the 10 Commandments. There's a lot more depth to it than a lot of people realize. A lot of people fluff it over in like children's stories and stuff, but people died. People are glowing now. All kinds of stuff. Absolutely fantastic. Maybe one day I will dive into some of the nitty gritty parts of like the tabernacle and some of the symbolism there and everything, but not today. We're stopping it there. As always, thank you guys for listening. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned some stuff. As always, hope that you have a fantastic week. Cheers.